Thank you for clicking in this video. This gripping tale follows Doug, a survivor. Brace yourself for a journey into the unknown, where survival is not just a fight against the elements, but against a force beyond imagination.
The night the meteors fell, it felt like the universe was tearing apart the sky, sending down shards of cosmic glass that rained over the quiet town of Clover Ridge. I was there, standing in my backyard, bathed in the ethereal glow of the falling stars, mesmerized by the spectacle. It wasn't just beautiful, it was otherworldly, as if something beyond our understanding was reaching out to us. The news had been hyping it for weeks, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime event. But as I watched, something in me sensed that this was more than just an astronomical display. It was an omen. By morning, the world was already abuzz with reports. It wasn't just our town. The meteor shower had been seen across the globe, and with it came strange occurrences. Unexplained phenomena, whispers of unusual flora sprouting overnight, and a pervasive, unsettling feeling that something had changed. I dismissed it as media hysteria, a way to keep the event in the headlines. But when I ventured into the woods behind my house, I found something that made my blood run cold. The trees had changed. Their bark, once rough and familiar, was now smooth, almost pulsating with an unnatural energy. A thick, blackened fungus clung to their trunks, spreading like a stain, its tendrils snaking outwards as if searching for something. I bent down to inspect it, my curiosity overpowering the instinctual fear gnawing at my gut. The air around it was thick, almost alive, and when I reached out to touch it, the world seemed to warp around me. I pulled my hand back quickly, but it was too late. The sensation had already begun. The first night after my encounter in the woods, I dreamt of dark, endless tunnels, winding beneath the earth, where something ancient and hungry lay waiting. I woke drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to shake it off, but the dream clung to me like a shadow, its presence lingering at the edge of my thoughts. As the days passed, I began to notice changes in myself. Small things at first. My thoughts would drift, my skin tingled with a sensation I couldn't explain, and I felt a growing disconnect from the world around me. It was subtle, but I could feel it. The fungus was inside me, weaving itself into my mind, pulling at the threads of my consciousness. And with it came the connection. I could feel the presence of others, not just people but things that were once human, their minds linked by the same entity that was now inside me. They were close, closer than I wanted to admit, their thoughts pressing against mine like a whispering crowd. I kept it to myself, convincing myself that I was overreacting, that the stress of the meteor shower had triggered something in my mind. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. One evening, I decided to confide in Emily, my closest friend. She had always been level-headed, the kind of person who would talk me down for my paranoid rants. But as I described the changes I was feeling, her expression shifted from concern to something else, something I couldn't place. "Doug, you're scaring me," she said, her voice trembling. "What if it's not just in your head? What if we're all connected to it now?" Her words struck me harder than I expected. I hadn't considered the possibility that this wasn't just happening to me. The thought that everyone in town could be experiencing the same thing, that we were all part of some larger, sinister design, sent a wave of panic through me. The following days were a blur. I found myself avoiding the woods, avoiding people. The connection was growing stronger, more invasive, and I could sense their presence wherever I went. The once familiar streets of Clover Ridge had become alien to me, the people mere extensions of the thing inside me, inside us all. It wasn't until I encountered John, my neighbor, that I realized the full extent of what was happening. I hadn't seen him in days, and when I did, it was like looking into a mirror. His eyes were hollow, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones. But it was the way he spoke that terrified me the most. It wasn't him, not really. The words came out in a monotone, a dull echo of the man he used to be. He was gone, consumed by the same force that was eating away at me. "Join us, Doug," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "It's easier that way. No more fear, no more pain. Just peace." I backed away, shaking my head. But even as I did, I could feel the pull, the overwhelming desire to give in, to let go of the fight. The connection was tightening around me, binding me to them, to it, and I knew it was only a matter of time before I lost myself completely. But I couldn't. I couldn't just surrender, not without trying to fight back. I had to find a way to stop it, to sever the connection before it was too late. I thought of Emily, of the others, and I knew I had to act quickly. But how do you fight something that's already inside you, something that's become a part of who you are? The answer came to me in a moment of clarity, a fleeting thought that broke through the fog in my mind. The fungus, the source of it all, was still in the woods, still spreading. If I could destroy it, maybe, just maybe, I could break free from its hold. It was a desperate plan, but it was all I had. That night, I returned to the woods. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the trees now fully overtaken by the black fungus. It pulsed with a sickly light, the tendrils reaching out like claws, pulling everything into its grasp. I carried with me a canister of gasoline and a lighter, crude tools, but the only weapons I had against something so incomprehensible. As I doused the trees, the fungus recoiled, as if sensing what I was about to do. The connection in my mind flared, the voices growing louder, angrier, but I pushed them aside. With a flick of my thumb, I ignited the lighter and set the woods ablaze. The fire roared to life, consuming everything in its path, and with it came a scream, a high-pitched, inhuman wail that tore through my mind, driving me to my knees. But I couldn't stop now. I had to see it through, had to destroy it all, even if it meant destroying myself in the process. The fire spread quickly, fueled by the dry wood and the gasoline, and soon the entire forest was a raging inferno. The connection in my mind began to weaken, the voices fading as the flames consumed the fungus, burning away the dark threads that had woven themselves into my consciousness. I stumbled back, away from the fire, my body weak, my mind a chaotic swirl of emotions. The connection was gone, severed by the flames, but in its place was something worse, a void, a gnawing emptiness that threatened to swallow me whole. I collapsed to the ground, the world spinning around me as I tried to make sense of what had happened. When I woke, the fire had died down, leaving behind a charred wasteland where the forest once stood. The air was thick with smoke, the sky a dull, ashen gray. I pushed myself to my feet, my body aching, my mind numb. I had done it. I had destroyed the fungus, severed the connection. But at what cost? I made my way back to town, each step heavy with the weight of what I had lost. The streets were empty, the town eerily silent. It wasn't until I reached my house that I realized why. The connection was gone, but the people were gone too. Or rather, they had never been people at all. They had been part of the fungus, part of the entity that had invaded our world. And with its destruction, they had simply ceased to exist. My heart sank as the truth washed over me. I was alone, completely and utterly alone, the last remaining vestige of a world that no longer existed. But as I stood there, staring at the empty streets, I felt something stir in the back of my mind. A flicker of something familiar, something I had thought was gone. The connection. It wasn't completely severed, not entirely. And in that moment, I realized the horrifying truth. The fungus had not been destroyed. It had adapted, evolved, and it was still inside me, still waiting. I looked down at my hands, at the black tendrils that were now creeping up my arms, burrowing into my skin. The connection flared to life, stronger than ever, and I knew there was no escape. The entity had won. It was inside me, and soon it would be inside everyone else. As I felt my mind begin to slip away, Consumed by the hive, a final, terrifying thought crossed my mind. This was just the beginning. The entity wasn't just here to take over our world. It was here to prepare us for something far worse, something that was already on its way. And as the last of my humanity faded away, I could only hope that whatever was coming would be merciful, because I knew, deep down, that the true horror was yet to come.
If you want to watch another story, there is another video appearing on your screen now. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more spine-chilling stories.